ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
Is really true, is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geri Petito Show. Everyone and anyone who knows me knows I am the author of I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass. I'd rather be a smartass than a dumbass. Because, guys, over 33 years ago, I was a dumbass. But today, 33 years later, I can honestly say now I'm a smartass. And yes, the word ass is in the Bible at least 40 times, and it means donkey. And that's what I was. I'm saying all that to say this, there are a lot of people out there who are still struggling with severe addictions and a lot of people dealing with recovery, and unfortunately so many haven't made it. And I just want everyone out there to know someone is listening. I'm a nutritional health coach. I'm also a recovery coach. All my services to you are free. Please reach out. If you think my book can help someone, because I sure do, you can go right to Simon & Schuster's bookstore, Archway Publishing, BAM, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and you can go to my website, www.geripetito.com, and please subscribe to the Geri Petito Show YouTube channel. And guys, listen, if you truly cannot afford my book, please reach out to me about that as well. I want to give a shout out to a few of my sponsors today. Okay. First of all, Paula Ann from Ablaze Entertainment and Freedom Rings Festival, helping survivors of human trafficking to live a life of normalcy. The Geri Petito Show is also one of their sponsors. Go to www.freedomringsfestival.com. Producer, I hear feedback. Okay. And then I've got Stormin Norman Selden, 732-245-4777, www.storminnormanselden.com, booking dozens of attractions for concerts and performances on venues of all sizes, from 5 to 12-piece band, and anything you need in between, guys, okay? Stormin Norman Selden. Then, Gene DiNapoli. He's doing a show June 2nd, 3 p.m. at the Sellersville Theater. The Duprees and special guests, remember then, 215-257-5808. Please call for tickets. Then on June 8th, 2 p.m., the Sellersville Theater, Summer Serenade with Chris Ruggiero, 215-257-5808. June 9th, 3 p.m., Grunge Center for the Arts, Toms River, New Jersey, Summer Serenade with Chris Ruggiero. And June 14th, 7:30 p.m., the Sellersville Theater, Sal the Voice Valentinetti from America's Got Talent, guys, 215-257-5808. Call and get your tickets. So, having said that, I've got an incredible show for you today. And I would first like to introduce my amazing guest co-host who introduced me to our star guest, Justin Drummond. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. It's really good to be back. My favorite smartass. Can I say that?
Ass is in the Bible. Yes, you could say that.
Okay, my favorite smartass. Okay, I love it. If you haven't heard Geri Petito's story, please check it out, and please go check out her book. It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you. So, Justin, you know how I feel about you. I love you. You bring me incredible guests. And everybody, this guy's got a story as well. So if you ever want to hear his story, reach out to me, and I'll introduce you to him. All right, Justin, please introduce our star guest, please.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know or haven't seen me co-host on Geri Petito shows, you would know that I am a huge supporter of mental health. But as soon as I heard this guy's story, I found him on social media. Like this guy absolutely is a warrior. He has been through so much pain, suffering, and like, you know, I can honestly say like he is one of the strongest people I know mentally. Eric Zink, how you doing?
I'm
How you
good.
doing?
How are you doing? Thanks for letting me on here. I wanted just to share a little bit for those who don't know. Very open about mental health, very open about addiction. I lost a wife in 2015 to suicide. My dad committed suicide in 2017. I attempted suicide in 2018. Very open about suicide, suicide awareness, signs of suicide, because a lot of that, unfortunately, is blocked by a lot of social media. Even though everyone wants awareness, they don't want awareness, if that makes sense. I'm officially diagnosed with ADHD, PTSD, GAD, MDD. Those are my diagnoses. I'm not a victim to them. I think it's important, though, to get a diagnosis because it helps you understand what you're dealing with, what you're working with, coping tools. It actually helps you live a fulfilled life. At 40, I was diagnosed with level 1 autism, which was a new diagnosis, which I guess I kind of collect them a little bit. I'm a recovering cocaine and alcoholic addict. I'm very open about those stories and shares, and I find it important to share how we've made it through life to help others who are struggling through life make it a little bit easier for them. And so I kind of took to social media. It was therapeutic in the beginning for me and kind of just turned into more.
Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you for honoring me and Justin here today, because sh- people need to be aware. You know, you're right. Oh, they want to be aware, but then they don't want to be aware. Then, you know, I get it. Believe me, I get it. People need to be aware, especially parents. Okay, you need to be aware. So I want to thank you for honoring us here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna give the mic to Justin because Justin always has some really great questions he likes to ask the guests. So we'll start there, and then I'll do some interrupting here or there. But Justin, take the mic, sweetheart.
Okay, so whenever we have guests on here, I always like to start from the beginning. I really think that that's a good place to start. Like, can you like first describe to us like your first experience with mental health? Like, was it something that you always struggled with, or did something happen in a moment of your life that started your struggles and battle with like you know what's been going on?
I've always kind of struggled with it, and I think everybody struggles in different senses. I mean, it wasn't until I went back to therapy here just a couple of years ago, actually, in my sobriety, wondering why I was still struggling, that I realized how much like trauma even I had as a kid growing up. Even though I lived in a really good house, had money, my dad was a successful doctor. On paper, I mean, it looks great. I think everybody, though, in their own way, it gets trauma different forms. My dad attempted suicide actually when I was really young. I have very, very small memories of it, but I do have some memories of actually bringing him home from the hospital after a suicide attempt. Um, we're open about mental health, and nothing really ever affected me until I was 13. I was really struggling in school. I was having struggle just with grades. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I wasn't normal. Something wasn't right. I didn't know why school came easier to my friends and not to me. All of this, no idea what it is, but I was open with my parents and they knew I was struggling. We'd always been open about stuff like this. Thankfully, my dad was a doctor and doctors have connections. Got me into a psychiatrist and psychologist, and they started doing testing on me. And this is now, people have to remember, this is back in like 93. I was about 13 years old. And they ended up giving me this diagnosis after about a week of meeting with a psychologist, meeting with a psychiatrist, a bunch of different testing. And they diagnosed me with ADD. It was this new diagnosis that people were finding out was out there, attention deficit disorder. And they put me on Ritalin at 13. And the one thing I will say is it made me feel normal. That was my first experience with it. It did teach me not to fear medication, because all of a sudden, all these struggles of people don't realize, like with ADHD, it's not just learning disabilities and trouble focusing. You have trouble putting words together at times. You get mental fatigue. You get reduced verbal communication when you get burnout. I mean, there's a lot. Your battery only goes so much, and so Ritalin actually helped me tremendously. My grades went up. I was able to have really healthy friendships, healthy relationship. You know, more with my parents. And that was really my first encounter, I guess you could say, in a sense, with anything mental illness, mental health related. Later on at 17, I was actually re-diagnosed with ADHD because they found out there was a difference, and there was a hyperactive side to it. And I was the fidgeting, always had to be in motion type of person. So I ended up getting a re-diagnosis with that, and I trialed and errored it with a lot of different medications. And eventually, it's always just kind of been Adderall was my saving grace that allowed me to be kind of normal.
Wow. Okay, so phew, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I mean, and anything we ask, if you don't feel comfortable answering, you don't have to. Okay? Growing up, how was your family life with your parents?
It was good. I mean, I was essentially raised by a single mom.
Okay.
Later on in life, I can analyze and had to do a lot with therapy with it to realize that my placement of money in life is different than other people's. I placed money above love in a sense, like money was your value in life of what you could bring in a sense. But I mean, my dad was around, but he wasn't around. He was a doctor. That was his life. He was a private practitioner, had his own practice, was a well-known doctor where I grew up in Michigan. My mom ran his office. My mom did the best that she could to always be there and stuff for all of our games, all that kind of stuff. But, dad wasn't always kind of around, and I always wanted his attention. I wanted his love. My dad struggled in his own ways, which is kind of obvious, I guess, later on in 2017. It was bad enough he took his life. But it was one of those that, even though it was a good life and everyone should, people will say, oh, be grateful that you had, food and you had, clothes and all this stuff. And yeah, I'm grateful for all that. But it also doesn't discount the fact that we all go through a lot of different things in life. I was taught that I had to earn everything. So for me, for the longest time, I struggled with a lot of different things. If I wasn't success was everything. If I wasn't successful, I didn't deserve things. It wasn't, I had this weird outlook of life, to the point that literally for a very long time, money controlled my life. Money was success for me. Money meant that I could, have a good life. I didn't have to like penalize myself because I failed. Lots of issues that helped spawn there. But I mean, so there's two sides of it. I mean, growing up was good, but growing up was also a challenge.
Okay, Justin?
Yes. So I also have a question about this certain topic. I know that some people really are against medication and that they really don't really think it just does anything, but just changes the way that your brain thinks. I've been noticing that you have a little bit more positive things to say about medication. Why is that?
Because why do we fear it? That's the thing. I think people use medication still to bash people. I think there's a lot of miseducation around it. I think it's a lot of social media's fault too, because of how social media views how you should share about mental health and mental illness and all of this versus the reality of it. And one of the best examples, I think, is actually ADHD meds. And it's not even when you go into bipolar meds and lithium and all this stuff. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist. I work with a lot of doctors. I've done all my due diligence to research a lot of stuff. But yes, Adderall is an amphetamine salt. It is not methamphetamine. There is a difference. It's a difference in the chemical makeup, but people automatically just go into, oh, it's meth, and let's face it, the stigma around meth is people with pitted out faces, robbing, homeless, missing teeth, smoking, out of a light bulb. I mean, the stigma around meth is not good, which it shouldn't be good, but people then automatically go to, well, Adderall's the same thing as that, which is not. Now, don't get me wrong. People can get addicted to Adderall. And also, though, people can get addicted to Percocet. People can get addicted to any, codeine. People can get addicted to any opiates out there. These things have a plus side to it. They also have a bad side to it. I've always been open-minded to it, though, because I think everybody's recovery, especially, was different. For example, when my dad killed himself, I did not relapse. When my wife killed herself, I went into hardcore self-medicating through a lot of alcohol, a lot of cocaine. But when my dad committed suicide, I was 3 weeks sober, and I ended up getting on Xanax. And everybody was like, "Oh, you're speedballing. You're taking Xanax and Adderall even. Like, this is so dangerous. You don't know what you're doing." Well, when I take Adderall, I feel normal. I can control my urges to drink. I can control my urges to use. I have no impulsiveness of wanting to go out. I understand how dopamine works in my brain, how serotonin works in my brain, how it works with ADHD. And so that keeps me pretty sane, but I started having a lot of really bad panic attacks. And people, like, if you want to understand panic attacks, a stressful thing in your life can bring on panic attacks. Feels like you're having a heart attack. Well, my panic attacks were brought on by the fact that my dad just killed himself, and I didn't know how to quite deal with that. So instead of self-medicating, the doctor gave me Xanax to use as needed when these would come on, because if you've ever had a panic attack, I mean, it knocks you out for the day. After you have one, I mean, you feel like you had a heart attack. You are exhausted. You want to sleep. Once you finally calmed it down, like, you literally just crash. And when I could feel like even my anxiety starting to go up to the point that it's just going to start getting worse and worse, I would take like a 1/4 milligram, whatever, and it would just calm me down. And it actually works hand in hand with Adderall to an extent. And I would function without anxiety or panic attacks through the day. And through time, I got back. I never got addicted to Xanax, and I was only on it for maybe 2-3 months, and then I got off of it. So I understand the tool side of it. Like, it's like a carpenter's not going to go to work without his hammer, and we don't degrade the carpenter for bringing a hammer that he's too weak, that he can't pound in the nails with his own hand. And that's the way I guess I've always just looked at medication. That's what it is. It's medication, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I personally haven't really felt like I have the right medications, for myself. I really think that it does help, but I mean, I really don't really think it's I've reached that point where it's stop completely. I mean, and it probably never will, because medication doesn't really get rid of the whole thing completely. You have to put in the work. I was diagnosed with 3 severe cases of OCD. I can't go much into detail, but I will say, the way my experience with OCD works, just imagine possibly the worst possible thing that one can do. That's what goes on in my brain 24/7, and it makes me feel like I've already done these things, and it's trying to make me become this person that I don't want to be, and that has eventually lead to anxiety and a little bit of a depression. And I can honestly say, from hearing, everything that you've been through, I mean, I just really want to know, how do you do it? Because I can't really explain, how strong you are, because that must be a lot to handle.
I handle it because what else am I going to do? Does that make sense? It's the hardest thing to really explain. And I'm making sure I'm not using colorful language either. I call myself out a lot. I was the master of being the victim. I had to really go back to my childhood and a lot of things, even when it came to just recently with therapy and a lot of stuff that had made sense and made my life even more easier, where I didn't self-sabotage. But I had to really find, okay, what are my negative habits in life? And my negative habits were, I was very good at being a victim. I was very good at being poor Eeyore, poor me. Constantly being the victim of life. And so I had to start being able to call myself out on that. I had to be able to essentially find self-worth and self-love, because I didn't have any for a long time. Even when I got sober and made it through all this, I made it through a lot of it just going numb. So much of it was based off of anger and rage at my dad, that I didn't realize that actually got me sober in the beginning. But to stay sober, going to therapy really made a big difference. But I had to be able to finally find a point where I could look in the mirror and like who I saw. And it was just so many different, even just exercises of CBT therapy and DBT therapy, of covering one eye and just saying my name out loud, looking in the mirror, seeing myself. Because I had no self-worth. My self-worth was money. My self-worth was what I could bring to the table, because that's what it was for me growing up. Our self-worth was based on what did we bring to the table, in a sense. That there was more to me than money. There was more to me than a job. There was more to me than a title. There was more to me than social media. And a lot of it was finding an outlook in life of, what do I want out of life? What is best for me? Learning that it's okay to be a little bit selfish, and going, this is what I want to do. being able to let go and learning how to let go of my past. Of like, yeah, I've hurt a lot of people. I did a lot of bad things. I did a lot, and I hurt a lot of people. And I did my best to make it okay with them. But at a certain point, I had to let that go, though, too. If they didn't want my amends, or if they still want to be angry at me and hate me, they still can, and they have that right, and they have all the right in the world to, and that's okay. But I had to
Yep.
learn that not to dwell on that, not to constantly beat myself up for that past, to look so forward to the future. Because for so long, I couldn't look past a week. I couldn't look past a couple days. And now to be able to look for a future and so focus on future and goals and excitement in life, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, for some reason, like I always can't really stand the fact that people really are angry with me. I mean, I really don't like making people angry. And if they are angry with me, I feel like I do have to do something about it, because just know that somebody out there that really hates you, when you didn't really intentionally do anything, especially the fact that I have autism, and I can say one thing with one intention and it comes out another, and I really want to do everything I can to try to fix it.
And that's all you can do. All you can do is all you can do, and all you can do is good enough. And I've always had to remind myself that there's 7.7 billion people on the planet. There's probably going to be out of that 1 million people that hate me no matter what, even if I don't say a single word to them. They just see my face, and maybe I remind them of somebody that they don't like, and that's okay. It's so much of that, just constant affirmations, almost even in my head, that goes to the point, especially with social media. I mean, you get torn apart. People just can say some of the most vicious, mean things in the world, and I just kind of laugh at it and ignore so much of it. And the best part about ADHD is we have object permanence of, out of sight, out of mind almost, and you kind of forget about it. And so I allow myself to forget and forgive, in a sense of not dwelling on it, because the other side of it too is I can get heated and angry, man. Temper creates dopamine for my brain. And dude, I'm not a person to fight with, because I will lock horns with you and we will go at it, and I will not stop, because it's almost like my brain, and especially people with ADHD can relate to this. Your brain thrives on this now. All of a sudden, it does create dopamine naturally. And our brains work differently that way. So we get hyper focused on our anger, and our temper goes off the hook. And so in order to control a lot of that, if I start to get angry, I found things that I enjoy. I love water. Water is huge escape for me. So I live near a river. I can go to the river and I can go put my feet in the water. I can go take a walk. I can get outside. Outside to me is healing to me. It's very calming to me. I disconnect from the world. I disconnect from my phone. Social media, the phone itself just really jacks with you a lot of different ways. And people don't realize of how much just disconnecting from this stuff every single day. I do it every day for at least an hour and a half, because I work out in the morning and I go for a walk every night, especially in summertime. I struggle a lot in wintertime. But in summertime, like now, it's great in Idaho. It's like in the 70s.
Yeah, I cannot walk in the morning when it's really hot out, because I sweat like a dirty animal.
But hey, that's okay. And you know what I do? I don't like people. I struggle with people. I struggle with a lot of social anxiety. I struggle with making eye contact with a lot of people and stuff. And when I go walking, if I'm by myself and I'm not with my wife, I'll wear I have them on purpose, the big Beats headphones. Because when I have those on, even if I have no music playing and I have those on, people just assume I'm listening to music and leave me alone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, do you enjoy listening?
Oh, I love music. Music calls me.
Do you have a favorite go-to song when you're feeling a little down?
They all rotate. It depends on what song I'm kind of stemming on at the moment.
So I have a question. Okay, so I
Really
have a question for you. So Eric, you're remarried?
Yep.
Do you have any
I'm actually
children?
married. This will be my 5th marriage.
Okay. Do you have any children?
I have no children.
Okay. Your mom is still with us?
My mom is still alive. She's in Florida. She's retired.
Okay, good. So I have a question for you. I'm listening to everything you're saying, and I'm like, you're amazing to me. I want you to give some people out there who are listening and I know 3 of them that are, and they're struggling. Okay, give them a little bit of advice how to get to that point you got to just say, I'm okay, even if I'm not okay, I'm okay.
It really started with me and therapy.
Okay.
And again, like if you can, like I really go back to that. And don't get me wrong, therapy failed a lot for me
Okay.
because I made it fail. I lied. I lied to my therapist. I walked on eggshells. I sugarcoated things. I sugarcoated things with everybody in my life. I walked on eggshells my entire life. I did what I was supposed to do, what I thought I should do. And I lived my life by that, and it really trapped me in it and put me in very bad places. One of the reasons I also self-medicated a lot. When I started being honest with my therapist, I had support from somebody who didn't judge me. I don't know her. She doesn't really know me. She could say she doesn't like me. She could go off on me. It doesn't affect my daily life because you can't hurt me. We don't have a relationship where you can actually hurt me. We're a different relationship. So I started by being honest with her first. And I made myself the thing of like, I'm going to go in here with complete honesty. And holy cow, for once in my life, therapy actually worked. Like, holy cow, asking for help and asking for tools and being honest felt amazing. And we're so worried and we're so afraid. We live in so much fear of what others are going to think and what others are going to say to us. And I totally get it. But I will say this, man, it became healing when I could be more honest and held more honest to myself than anything else of how other people felt. Because I can't control other people's feelings, but I can control mine. And I started being more honest with my wife now, and I started being more honest with people around me. And I realized the more and more honest I was, the more and more it pulled me out of this dark place. Because my mind went quiet now at night, and I could sleep better. I didn't have this stress over me. I wasn't self-sabotaging in life. And it's a process. And I wish there was like a pill that would like fix it all. But literally, you know, I think a lot of it you can relate even to like addiction of like, you see these people who are brand new in addiction. They don't want to tell like, you know, they don't want to tell their kids. They're ashamed to tell their kids. They're ashamed to tell, you know, there may be one family member. There's like one family member they'll tell, but they won't tell. They won't tell any other family members. But then you find these people and you're like, dude, you've been sober for like 5 years. How'd you do this so far? And everybody's the same. Everyone in their life knows that they're an addict. And they have now told everyone in their life. And they're not struggling as much as this one person who's told only one person in their life. And I think it's kind of that evolution and that growth that we go through of fighting for it. You literally have to fight, even if it's just when it comes to mental health, I think. You have to fight for the life that you want, that you deserve, and realize that you're not a victim to this life. That, you know, what happens, like life is gonna beat you down. It's inevitable, man. There's gonna be bumps and bruises along the way, but it didn't do it to you on purpose. This is just life, and it's how we react to it. And I found by just being honest with other people, it makes it so much easier.
Well, I'm going to read a poem, which I wasn't planning on reading this one. It's in my book, and I wrote it. It's called Honesty. Okay? So I have to. It's a very small poem.
Yeah, she's a poet. I hope you don't mind.
I'm a poet, and I know it. All right, here we go. Let's be honest once and for all. Stand on the truth and you won't fall. I'm not an addict, this I know, because my God, he tells me so. You see, this world will hold you down. It lies and says you can't be found. But God says, listen, that's all such bull. Your cup's not empty. Your cup is full. The devil laughs right in your face, makes you think you're such a waste. It's up to you to fight your fight, to let him know he's wrong, not right. You weren't born to be this way, so screw the world with what they say. I'm not an addict, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. You know, I'm going to read a paragraph here. Being honest with yourself is seemingly one of the hardest things to do. I'm not exactly sure why that is. Maybe it's because once you become honest, things become real. Once things become real, you have to deal with them, and we all know what that can lead to. Dealing with life can be very unpleasant at times. Feelings suck, let's be honest. When you're forced to see the truth, it's easier to numb the difficult feelings that arise rather than let yourself experience them. Unfortunately, numbing your feelings leads to more of a mess. It leads you down a dark path filled with deception. So what you just said really rang a bell with me as well, because until that day came when I had to be honest, I couldn't get sober. I couldn't get clean. So, Eric, you're 100% right. Everything you just said. So, I want to thank you for sharing that. Justin, would you like to say something to Eric?
Yes, so I want to talk a little bit about before 2015 with your relationship with your then wife. Did you guys have a good relationship, and was she always open about her struggle with mental health?
Yeah, Brandy. I was actually married when I met Brandy. I got that marriage annulled. I didn't know why I treetopped to relationship to relationship. Turns out a lot of trauma does that to you. And I ended up getting that annulled. And I met my Brandy, at a bar. And I remember I came up to her outside, and it was one of those where I saw she being bothered by a bunch of guys, and I came up and pretended that she was my girlfriend or whatever, and all the guys laughed. And she was able to ad-lib with me real well.
Good man, good man.
Yeah, and she was super cool. Like, her and I had a lot of things in common. Even in the very beginning, we were both open about our mental health struggles. But the problem that we ran into is we were both addicts that weren't willing to admit that we were addicts. She was an alcoholic. I was an alcoholic. We drank a lot. And it never got bad drinking, but that was what we do. We would drink. She also, her other drug of choice was benzos. I really enjoyed cocaine. And so we were toxically codependent. And it turned from fun to pure codependency after a while. And that was when it started to go bad. I mean, there was first couple years of our marriage were great, you know. My wife was a stay-at-home wife. I wanted her to. She literally had the life, and she'd been through a lot of abuse in her life. She's been through a lot of assault in her life. A lot of stuff that nobody should ever go through in their life. And I, at that point, financially, could give her whatever life she wanted. She could do whatever she wanted. She knew that, but instead, she just chose to stay home and drink. And looking back, like, yeah, I should have, urged her to get into therapy and to really start facing some demons and stuff, but I never did. And, we just kept drinking, and it just went downhill and got worse and worse and worse over time, to the point that she ended up getting Wernicke's synotropy. And I don't think a lot of people who drink realize what it is, but at a certain point, drinking flips on you to the point where alcohol blocks out the carbs in alcohol. There's different types of carbs out there, block out B vitamins from thiamine from absorbing into your brain.
Yeah.
And Wernicke's synotropy can be brought on by severe alcoholism, where, like, I didn't know what was wrong with her. It was like she had dementia. Like, I would go to work and I would come home and she'd be like, "Where were you?" And I'd be like, "I was at work." And she'd be like, "You wouldn't even know what day it was." Like, I knew something was like massively wrong, but I thought maybe she has like a tooth infection or an ear infection. I was taking to her an ENT, running all these tests. And finally, the doctor that we were seeing wanted to prove me wrong, because I'm like, "No, dude, something's still not right." And so we took her for an MRI, and when she got done with the MRI, they came and told me I had to take her to the emergency room immediately. And so I took her to the emergency room, and they ended up diagnosing her with Wernicke's synotropy, where her brain had dark spots on it where there should be B vitamins and the brain should be firing. But because all she was consuming mostly was alcohol, it was all starting to slowly shut down. And that was kind of the beginning of the end, because even after she got out of the hospital, we were both sober for maybe like 2 weeks, and then went right back at it. And it got to the point that I knew if we continued on this path that both of us would probably die. So I took her to her mom's in Yuma, Arizona, and we ended up separating, because I was like, if she's around, regardless, she can ask me for alcohol, I'm going to go get her alcohol. I just am. And then I'm going to drink with her too. I mean, that's just unfortunately how it was. And so we ended up separating, and then we were separated for about a year almost. And then she ended up taking her life.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, heartbreaking, very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, Justin, do you have another question?
Yeah, because I am a little curious about what you're going to say about this. I really like, when people go through lose someone to suicide. I know that some people will always say, yeah, I know some people will always say, just keep fighting. It's what they want, and I really don't like it when they say that because the last thing that was on their mind was I'm ready. I'm ready to die. And I really don't want to believe that's necessarily true. So I think my next question to you is, if you could say anything right now to your wife and your dad, what would you say, and how would you think they would respond to you?
I would probably start off screaming at them with a lot of anger and a lot of rage. And I would literally let them know that their depression is lying to them. Like, it would be a bombardment nonstop into therapy, just get them admitted. And I would be like looking at them going, your depression is lying to you. Because I know what it's like to also be there. I attempted suicide in 2018. And when it comes to suicide, I'm very open about this. I'm very big about this. And I'm very passionate about it because unfortunately, when it comes to suicide awareness, it's something that everybody should know about, everyone should talk about, but we don't talk about. Social media limits you how you can talk about this. Everyone limits you how you can and cannot talk about this, which is in itself extremely dangerous. People didn't realize for the longest time the suicide hotline, if you ever dialed it, which most people didn't, everyone just shared the suicide hotline. If you struggle, here's the suicide hotline. If you called the old hotline, and I haven't called the new hotline because I don't want to get fired back up because I'm pretty sure it works probably the same way. But when you used to call the old suicide hotline, it was the Veterans Mental Health Affair line. It was also the suicide hotline. You could be on hold for about 5 to 10 minutes waiting to talk to someone.
What?
Like, what kind of hotline is that? Oh,
What?
yeah. When you first called the old suicide, I used to do videos of this, and these videos would get taken down by social media. YouTube is the only one who allows freedom of speech. So hoorah to YouTube. Thank you for being social media out there. They are my favorite form of social media. But I have a video out there of literally calling the suicide hotline, and the first things out of their mouth isn't, hey, you matter, or any of that. It's for one, press 1 for English, press 2 for Spanish, and it goes through the whole thing, and I would press 1. Thank you for calling the Veterans, crisis line and the suicide hotline. We press 1 if you are a veteran, press 1 if you are, you're literally like, I could talk to a predator quicker than somebody through the suicide hotline. People never realize that. But it goes to show how uneducated we were about suicide, and people still are about suicide. So I'm so open about this that we listen, I almost think, to the wrong people, where to me, it is committed suicide. My wife committed suicide. My wife, it took her 3 attempts to kill herself. She died by asphyxiation. And I know it was 3 attempts because the cops during the autopsy showed me they can't give you letters or anything like that, but they were nice enough to actually give me printouts of her suicide notes. Like, I couldn't get the original ones because they do actually keep it all in evidence to make sure it wasn't a homicide, all this stuff, and they never give it back to you. But the thing is that she had 2 ripped open bags that she died by putting a bag over her head, literally, and suffocating herself. And they actually said that was pretty common form of suicide. And so the 3rd attempt, she ended up finally dying and killing herself. She had alcohol and Xanax and stuff in her system. My dad went to Walmart, bought a paring knife, sliced his wrist, sliced his neck, and put the knife in his chest. I mean, he committed suicide. And the definition of committed is like you have given everything to a cause. You are committed to a cause. Not that you committed a crime where everyone's like, don't use the word committed because it's like committing a crime. No, committed means you are dedicated to a cause. Well, they were dedicated to a cause. They killed themselves. That was the cause they were dedicated to. And I think that suicide is extremely selfish. I've been there before where we buy into our depression. I mean, you talk to anybody who has been through suicide will tell you that, you have these conversations in your head almost, not with other people, where people will say, hey, how are you doing? And you're like, well, I'm okay. And they're like, okay, cool. Good to see you. And they walk on, and your brain flips it as, see, they don't care. They should have known that you weren't really okay. They don't care about, you're having all these internal conversations that are so destructive that depression separates you so much from everybody. Even like one of the biggest signs of suicide is it's kind of like the surge. And the surge is like before somebody dies, in a lot of cases, they get this random burst of energy. This was really true with my wife, for example. Is my wife was the last week of her life, she was very talkative. She was happy. She was laughing all of a sudden. Like I thought she woke up and like literally she woke up and cured herself. No therapy, no meds, no anything. But all of a sudden she is happy. And it's almost like this final way that you convince yourself that, see, now that I'm happy, everybody's happy for me. See, they never cared in the beginning. They never cared at all. And it just, all it does is keep isolating you from everything. So if I could go back and talk to him, I mean, I would be jumping on top of him, screaming at him, because yes, I found out it was okay to be mad at him. It was okay to be very angry at him. It's not one of those things, you know, they were in pain. Yeah, they were in pain. Do you know how much pain they caused? Do you know how much trauma they caused? Not just to me, but to a lot of other people. Like, stop, man. Just when people say stuff like that, I get really fired up in a way because I'm like, have you ever had that happen to you? Do you know what it's like to get a call that your dad killed himself? You're never going to see your dad again. And it's not that he died from cancer. It's not that he died even from a car wreck. He literally killed himself. And you're like, it hits you a little differently. And so, yeah, I mean, if I could see them again, I would be screaming my head off at them, tying them down to the bed, calling, you know, the psych ward, getting them in the psych ward, and I wouldn't leave their side, and I'd be looking at them nonstop. Your depression's lying to you. This is not real. I am right here with you. I love you. What you're going through is not real. Like, it's not real. I mean, that is what I would do.
Mm-hmm. So I have to comment and ask you something, Eric, because my cousin's son committed suicide last year. He was in his 20s and got dressed for work. She was sitting at the table with her newspaper and a cup of coffee, and he came down, kissed her, said, "I love you, Mom, see you later." And she said he never really did that often. And he went to the front door and closed it as if he left. He snuck back upstairs and, with drugs, laid in his brother's bedroom and died. Okay. So I'm one of those people that will say, but you can't be upset with them because they weren't in the right frame of mind, because I don't know any better, okay? So I'm listening to you talk, and you also tried to commit suicide, and here you are being so honest that it's selfish. Like I would be the one saying it's not, and I'm listening to you, and I'm like, wow. So here's my question. When you were suicidal, you had, all right, how can I even, I'm just trying to make sense of it. That's all, Eric. When you were suicidal and you were thinking, was there also a part of you that said, wait a minute, this isn't right? I don't have to do this?
Nope.
So then how is it selfish?
Because I made everyone's decision for them without asking.
Gotcha.
And the reason is I went down this whole route, I'm sure just like everybody else, where I truly believed everyone's life was better off without me. Everyone was going to be happier without me. I was not going to be a financial burden to anybody. Everybody would be financially better off without me. Everybody would be happier without me. I wouldn't be, all these things, I had to constantly selling myself mentally on all this. It was like a tape on repeat in my brain of how wonderful everyone's life is going to be. And then I would call my mom and I would talk to my mom for a little bit and it'd be really superficial talk. And I'd hang up and be like, yep, see, she just does that just to tolerate me, and her life will be better off without me. And then my ex-wife at the time would come home, and I'd be like, yeah, see, she doesn't even care. Her life will be better off without me. And I'm making all these choices for everybody and not sharing with them what's going on in my head at all. So for me, looking back, I was so closed-minded, so bought in by, to me, it's not that necessarily maybe the person's selfish, but I will say this is depression is very selfish, and depression is very isolating. And I just bought into just constantly replaying this in my head. And it became like this weird game of constantly proving my depression right. I had to always prove it right. And the more that I kept proving it right, the more that it kept putting me in a darker and darker hole.
Gotcha. Thank you for making that clear for me. Okay. Wow. I've never spoke to anyone who put it that way. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. We still have a few minutes left. Justin, would you like to say anything?
Yes. So Like Jerry said, we're almost at the end of the show, but I do want to give you a chance to possibly promote, anything, that you are currently in the works for, anything that's coming up in the future. Are you possibly maybe going to even write your own book? I mean, you never know. You can be just like Jerry, we want to give you the opportunity.
No, I mean, if you go to ericbzink.com, that is my website. All my resources and stuff is there. I do a lot of work when it comes to even just resources out there. I do work with companies that do online therapy. ADHD Online is a company I just started working with. That is a phenomenal company where you can actually get tested for ADHD online, because I didn't realize how hard it was to find therapists. I am in the process of writing my own book. I'm about halfway there. It is a process and a half, I've learned, especially when you're ADHD, to write a book, and to help with even ghostwriters. But I do a lot even when it comes to just in the social media side. I used to use social media to just, essentially make money from that to help with everything. But unfortunately, social media doesn't pay you very well when you talk about the subjects I talk about. I don't know if Doritos and, all of them really want to be tied in with suicide and drugs. So I do also do a lot of online mentoring and online, resources and stuff like that. So if you go to the website, everything's there. But it's one of those things that, I do my best to not just talk about, to actually make changes. And I don't think people really understand what it takes to make changes in a lot of this stuff, because it's so heavily underfunded. Through even corporations and stuff like that, and through our government. Everybody wants change in mental health and to do things about mental health and do things about addiction, but nobody really wants to do what has to be done to help truly. And I think that's where a lot of the struggles and stuff lie. So I just do my best to bring awareness.
Beautiful.
Well,
Justin,
you're doing a good job.
he sure is.
Thanks.
Justin, what would you like to say to everyone listening?
Well, I mean, I absolutely like to thank Jerry again for bringing me on the show. You know how I feel about you. You definitely given me a chance to not only talk to these amazing guests, but also for giving me the confidence to actually be a part of these interviews. Because for anyone who hasn't really listened, I will share the story about how me and Jerry actually met. I actually was on a hiatus for another radio station, and I really needed something to needed something to do. I really wanted to continue to do what I love with the radio and booking these amazing guests, because I really could always find these amazing people like Eric. I did find her. We did talk, and I immediately got the first guest that we ever interviewed together, Brody Ray. And Jerry said, you're doing the show with me. And I'm like, excuse me? I literally had no experience doing interviews, because I mean, I do have autism. I do get socially awkward. I do say comfort words a lot, to just keep the conversation going. I get extremely nervous and anxiety with doing these interviews. I mean, I really hope the guests that we have, and especially the people that are out there listening, to know that I'm taking this very seriously. And I'm really blown away with the response that I've been getting from everybody else. They say you're doing such a great job, and I honestly think that I could do a little bit better. I mean, I'm trying to get but I'm really hoping that one of these days I will have the courage to actually do these interviews completely solo.
One day you will. And so I even got him a silly shirt, and it's on our page, Eric, with the the page I made. Is this thing on a cartoon, kind of thing? And I made him come live in studio for the first interview. So his mom drove him, and he was like, what? And he did great, and he's still doing great. And you know what? Everybody out there listening, and you just heard what Justin said, nothing's impossible. Okay, maybe you might need that push from someone, but don't feel like you can't. You can. No matter what it is, you can. So Justin, listen, you've been doing a great job, and I don't think you could get better. Okay,
no
you're
matter
doing
what
great.
you go through, I mean, like, it's always going to be like, very difficult. I mean, you may have thoughts that like, you want to quit, like you're going to want to quit, but like, I mean, like at the end of the day, like, like Eric said, like, like these things that are going on in your head, they're lying to you. Like, no matter how like believable they might sound, they're lying to you. And like you just gotta keep going.
Yep. So before I say my final words and have Eric say his, I want to read the poem that I was going to read, okay? And this one's called Change Your Choice. We all have choices to make, guys, and Eric said you just got to do it, okay? So change your choice. I had a life-changing moment that I knew had to be. The only way to change things was to first start with me. So I looked in the mirror and woke up one day and thought to myself I needed to pray. So I asked God to change me, to help me stay strong, to clean up my mess, to right what's been wrong. I cleaned up my diet, I cleaned up my room, I cleaned up all habits with this old dirty broom. I kept going forward and never looked back. I refused to derail, stayed on the right track. I realized my worth and all that did matter through my selfish behavior, the lives I had shattered. I finally decided at 30 years old to stop abusing my body, my mind, heart, and soul. My life-changing choice that I had once made over 33 years now, guys, my debt has been paid. So you read all my thoughts on how to stay clean. It's all or nothing, my friend. There's no in between. To live or to die is a choice you must make. Your life is not worthless, and you're not a mistake. One day at a time is a slogan you've heard. It works if you work it while applying his word. For you to get healthy, for your mind not to fail, escaping reality will keep you in jail. With addictive behavior, sex, drugs, food, or money, substituting addictions, now isn't that funny? I'm not an addict, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. So guys, I hope anyone out there struggling, really, I don't care if you have to watch this show 3 times in one day, listen to every single thing these 2 guys said, because they both are here to help you as well. Okay?
Yes.
Justin, I want to thank you again, sweetheart. I love you. You always bring it, kiddo.
Thank you so much.
You always bring it. And Eric, I'm going to give you the mic for final words from you, but I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for honoring me and Justin here today and sharing your story, because I know you've just helped so many people just through this interview. So thank you for that, sweetheart. I want you to take the mic.
No, I just thank you for letting me to having me on this show. I do enjoy doing podcasts and stuff at times, and I think it's just it helps with the conversation. It helps to hear other people's input. It helps to hear that there's no right or wrong way to do something. That it's all of our journeys are different, and how we get to this end goal is different. And I think that's what helps the most people, is because I feel so many times in life you just kind of feel lost. So hearing other people's roadmaps of how they made it, inspires you. It gives you an idea of something maybe to try. And that's the whole thing is, I mean, anybody out there who is struggling, try something new, try something, because obviously what you're doing isn't working. So it's now time to just, all it has to be is one small thing. And who knows, that one small thing can make a huge difference.
You're right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And please, please share this. We will also be on the audio of this show, Eric, will be on iHeartRadio next week, Tuesday or Wednesday, and I'll let you know. Okay?
Awesome.
So thank
All
you,
right,
guys.
good.
Okay,
Thank you.
producer, take us out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Love's the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
Is it really true? Is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Love's the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.